Hey guys, welcome back. This is the lecture number 9 from our Ruby on Rails frequently asked questions series. In this video, we will see another 10 frequently asked questions. So let's start with the first question of this video. What is the difference between a gem and a Rails engine? So gem we already know that we use as a libraries in a Ruby application, in a Rails application to add on the functionalities. Similarly, gems engine, a Rails engine can be considered as a plugin, and in fact it's a plugin, okay, that you can develop some features and use across the applications. But there are some difference between gem and Rails engine. The gem is only a library, but Rails engine can be a separate application, okay, and work act as a plugin. What do you mean by Rails engine? Explain when we need to use a Rails engine. Also, if you know, a list a few gems which are engines as well. So there are few gems like device and active admin, which acts as a Rails engine. Okay, they are Rails engine actually and acts as a gem in a Rails application when you use them. Okay, so Rails engine is a kind of plugin which provides some functionalities and has some feature implemented in that serve a specific behavior. And when you use them in a Rails application as a gem, they provide you add-on functionalities. Okay, and you can develop your own engine as well, or you can develop the Rails application inside a Rails application as well. Sorry, you can develop a Rails engine inside a Rails application as well. Is it possible to use two identical keys in a hash? What happens if you use two identical keys in a hash? Yes, it is possible to use identical keys in a hash, but whenever you use two identical keys inside a hash, it will provide you the value of the latest key which is defined in the last. For example, if you have defined, let's say, key 1 and value is 1, key 1 value is 2, then whenever you access the key 1 from that hash, you will get the value 2. Okay, so it discards the all previous definition of keys, and it only returns the keys which is defined last if it has multiple appearance. Okay, what is the best way to define a foreign key into existing table in Rails? You can define it using references as well. You can define uh, attribute as well, but you can define as an integer attribute as well and define the association inside the model. But when you define it as a reference, you just need to make sure that uh, you need to remove the constraint null false. Okay, for example, if you added null false attribute, a null false constraint, and you are adding a foreign key into existing table, then you will get an error when you run the migration or when you create another record, because you are adding that foreign key into an existing table, but before that there are so many records might be possible, okay, which has a null entry for that foreign key. So either disable this constraint or add it as an integer key and not as a references. Okay, how many Rails version you have worked with? Also list the changes between the Rails version you have worked on. This question is asked so many times. Like, for example, if you were being interviewed today, then you might be asked that in what versions of the Rails you have worked. If you say I have worked with Rails 5 and 6, then you might be asked the list the difference between 5 and 6. If you say I worked with Rails 4, 5, 6, and 7 recently, so you will be asked to list the differences between them. So it depends upon that how much Rails versions you have worked, and you need to know the differences between all the versions you have worked of Rails. For example, the difference between Rails 5 and 6 is mainly that Rails 5 use till the Rails 5 we use Sprockets to manage assets pipeline, and in Rails 7, in Rails 6 we use Webpacker by default to serve the asset pipeline. Okay, and Sprocket is optional here. And in Rails 7 we again Rails again removed the Webpacker and using the Sprockets to manage a hotwire import map to manage the asset pipeline. So there are many differences between across all the Rails versions. So you need to explain them. What is the difference between an array and an enumerator? Okay, so for answer of this question, you have to practice both array and enumerator in Ruby. What is your preference for return response for an API, JBuilder or active model serializer, and why? Okay, so both are fine, and it totally depends upon your preferences. But if you use JBuilder, then you will automatically get generated JSON files for the default 7 actions, and you will also get you need to add additional gem for active model serializer, but with for JBuilder, it works as a default in Rails. Okay, so it totally depends upon you that what you want to use. There are other options as well available for returning the API response, but you can use any of the JBuilder or active model serializer. And these kind of questions client or interviewer might ask when they have a specific project for which they want to hire you. For example, if I am a client and I want to hire you for my project, and my project is already using active model serializer for returning the JSON response, then I might be interested to know that whether you are experienced with active model serializer or not. Okay, so sometimes it depends upon this scenario as well. So reply smartly. What are the difference between lambda and probe? This is the question which I think 90% of the Ruby and Rails interviewer ask to the candidates. So it's still confusing me, but you need to practice this lambda and probe at your end to get to give more better answer. What do you mean by argumented scopes when you need to write argumented scope? Argumented scopes means like writing a scope and provide argument to that as a lambda. For example, you can say as a lambda. Okay, and we need argumented scopes just like when we need to perform something, we need to run some queries based upon some arguments. Okay, so this is called the argumented scope, and when you need to use them. What is the difference between update and update attribute method? The update method can accept multiple arguments, but update attribute can accept only one argument. Okay, or it can update only one attribute at a time. And update attribute check for validation, but update attribute will not check. Okay, so whenever you call an update method, you can pass a hash of params, but with update attribute, you just need to pass a single attribute and with it, along with its value to update the column. But update also check for validations, but update attribute skips the validation. Okay, and there might be some more differences that you can do, that you can learn when you practice this. Okay, so that's all 10 questions from this video. Okay, and thanks for watching this. In another video of this series, we will see another 10 questions. Till then, tata, goodbye, take care, and stay safe, and subscribe the channel for more.